Well, good morning everyone and welcome to Adam's Fishing. I say morning, it's actually nearly afternoon, but I've got a day off work. It's a Friday, it's the middle part of January, so we're still in winter. But behind me there you can see I've arrived at the quiet lake. Absolutely can't wait to get started and get fishing. First thing I'm going to do actually is drop a bucket in this very first swim, which is the one nearest to the car park, because it looks quite habitable in terms of being able to put my bivvy up, set my rods up and so forth. Not that I've seen any fish here or anything like that. What I am going to do after I've dropped that bucket though is have a walk along the lake on this side and see if I can see any signs of fish at all, because if I do, no matter how uncomfortable it is, that's where I'm going to be trying to set up and start fishing today. Well, here goes nothing. I've got the bucket in one hand, I've got the water bottle in the other. I'm going to drop a bucket in here and then have a little stroll down the bank. On my head is my new GoPro, so I'm going to start that recording, so hopefully you can see a bit of the lake as I walk along as well. Okay guys, I hope you're getting some of this. This is just a couple of swims down from where I've dropped that bucket in the first swim here. It's a good swim. It gets the edge of this island, which is a good spot. But I mean, as you can see, it's an absolute swamp, and there's a lot of these concrete slabs here to help walking down the path and so forth. I think I've just seen the ripples from a fish here in front of me. So that makes me think that despite it being a swamp, it's definitely worth considering. I suppose I could always set the bivvy up over there and the pod here, fishing out towards the corner of the island there. Something to think about anyway. Let's move on a little bit further. I just don't think there's anywhere I could squeeze the bivvy in these swims where the path narrows. So although I know that shouldn't be a deciding factor, it kind of has to be on this occasion. I need to be comfortable, at least. Again, this spot here just gets the side of this first island. You can see we've got a sort of fallen tree there, which is a really nice snag, I imagine, to fish up to. Well, I don't fancy snag fishing through the night, to be honest. Fabulous day today. It's cool, it's fresh, but it has stopped raining after probably 6 or 7 days of solid rain. Got quite an open swim here. There's a feature on the far bank there, which is a tree down and a bridge, which is always worth considering. The water is quite coloured up, generally quite coloured up, so I think it might be difficult to spot anything aside from, you know, ripples, swirls and bubbles, I suppose. There's a swim coming up just down here which I really like, and I've caught fish from in the past, so I'm just going to keep my voice low as we get close to it, because sometimes you can see fish kicking up silt from the lake bed. It's just up here off the corner of this island. It's a nice spot because there's room for popping your bivvy back here and setting the pod up just down here. We're getting towards the middle part of the lake now. Down where we started is, I believe, the deeper end, and up here it gets shallower and shallower. Now, given that temperatures, although haven't been really cold, are starting to drop, I'm sort of thinking the deeper areas might be a good shout. But then we have got this lovely sunshine this morning, which is probably adding a little bit of warmth into the shallower areas, so it's a difficult one really. That's the end of the lake up there. Very, very snaggy. I'm sure you get fish in there, but pretty much impossible to fish if you're doing the kind of bait and weight approach. I suppose if I had a tiny little stalking rod and I got in there with a bucket and tried that might be a good idea, but I'm not quite set up for that today. I've got 24 hours here, and I want it to be a relaxing time as well as trying my very best to catch a fish. But what a beautiful lake, and I've got the whole place to myself today. Fantastic. I'm going to go back to where I started because I did see a fish swirl, and I think that might be where I end up setting up. Whether it's that first comfortable swim or that second less comfortable swim, I'm not really sure yet, but I'll make a decision when I get there. All right, everyone, well, decision made. The banks are in a horrible condition thanks to the week or so of solid rain that we've had. This first swim is probably the best one for setting up for an overnight session, I would say. And it gives me access to the corner of that island where I did see a swirl and a little patch of bubbles as I was walking around. It's not a lot to go on, but it's something to go on, and that's where I'm going to start my session today. Well, that was probably the easiest job I've had unloading the car for the beginning of a fishing trip in my entire fishing history. The car's literally parked right behind the swim, so it's very pleasant, let's just say. Down here I've got my my large bag, which contains my unhooking mat, sort of unhooking cradle thing, and in there also is my rod pod. So I'm going to probably get my fishing gear set up first. Although we are due rain today, it's blue skies at the moment, so I think I don't need to rush to get the bivvy up just yet. I think I'll focus on getting the rod sorted first, deciding where and how I'm going to be fishing, and then I can get the bivvy up at my own pace. As you can see, I've sort of angled the pod so that it's pointing towards the island. I don't think I'm going to fish all 3 rods on exactly the same spot. I might fish 2 over towards the island, and 1 maybe a little bit more out in front of me, just to spread my bets a little bit, I suppose, really. The pod itself, or the base of the pod, is there. I just need to attach my backrests and my my alarms at the front, so that's what I'm going to do next. I keep these already set up in my sort of carry case here for the rod pod, which is really convenient and tends to save me a bit of time on the bank, I think, which is great. I have recently bought, as some of you may know, some bank sticks, and I've got a set of alarms on those bank sticks, and really and truly there's no reason that I couldn't be using them on this session. Probably should, in fact. The ground certainly is soft enough for a bank stick to go in. Sorry, excuse me, I've just misplaced something. Oh, there it is. Yeah, the ground's certainly soft enough, but to be honest, the only reason is those bank sticks are in a little bank stick carry case, which is inside my rucksack, and I didn't want to disturb everything to get them out. I already had the rod pod ready to go for my sort of longer sessions, so that's what I'm using today. So let's get these alarms in the front of the rod pod, and then we'll get the backrests on the back, and then I can look at getting some rods ready as well. I think that thing could do with a little bit of lubrication because they did not want to go in, but they are in now. Let's get the backrests in and then we'll sort some rods out. So 3 rods are allowed at this time of year, which is great. I am going to be using 3 rods and 3 different tactics to start with on each actually. Rod number 1 is going to be on my classic snowman rig with the trimmed down bottom bait and the trimmed down pop-up, making a little snowman type arrangement. That's going to be this rod probably. Second rod is going to be a Ronnie rig with a nice pale pink pop-up, and the third rod is going to be one of my solid PVA bags. And I'll tell you what I'll do now. I'll take you back in time a couple of days to me in the shed getting ready for using those very rigs. So yeah, stay tuned. You'll see me back on the bank again in just a minute, but I'm going to take you back a couple of days to the shed and see me preparing a little bit of stuff. The camera angle's not great, guys, because I'm new to this GoPro stuff, but hopefully you'll be able to see some of the prep that I was able to do at home. You join me here back in my shed, just tying up a few mesh PVA bags ready for my session on Friday. I'm doing it here at home so that I haven't got wet, cold hands trying to do something which is actually quite fiddly, and certainly something which I need to keep dry, which is tying up these little mesh bags. But hopefully you can see from this one what I'm doing. It's just a very small bag which is going to be threaded down the hook link, and the hook point itself is going to be pulled into that bag. I've not really compressed the bait really tightly in there. It's actually quite a loose package of bait. The idea is not to necessarily feed the fish, but really just to protect the hook point on the cast and to try and eliminate tangles on the cast as well. So that's why I'm doing this. And as I say, the reason I'm doing it here at home instead of on the bank is I need to keep everything nice and dry, and it's just a little bit of a fiddly thing really, which I'd rather not do on the bank when I'm going to be busy, hopefully doing other things towards catching myself that all-important carp. There's another one there. I haven't been particularly precise with the size of these. You can see I've got a few different sizes there, but they are there or thereabouts. You know, there's no really small ones, no really massive ones. They're all about the same size. That one is going to be too big. I'm going to let a bit of that stuff out of there. And there we go. That'll probably do me for now. If I do need any more on the bank, then obviously I can tie them. I've got a few already tied up, and that'll get me going, that's for sure. Alright guys, one other thing I'm going to do whilst I'm in the comfort of the shed and before my session on Friday is get a couple of rigs ready. Why not do a little bit of forward planning, eh? So here's the first one. It's a Ronnie rig. I'm going to prepare 2 of these, so I've got 2 casts there ready to rock and roll without messing around and fiddling around with cold and shaky hands. And both of them are going to be using a pink coloured, washed out pink coloured pop-up. And they just screw on, basically, kind of screw on, wind on to this threaded bait screw that I've attached to the hook shank itself. Got a little flexi ring swivel on there, and that gives that bait plenty of movement if it's needed, and hopefully enough for that hook point to turn and catch hold somewhere in the fish's mouth. So that's one rig for one of the rods is going to be on one of those. One of the other rods is going to be on my snowman rig, and here's one here that I prepared earlier in true Blue Peter style. So they're not going to be using the pink pop-ups, they're going to be using my Candy Nut Crush boilies, and I've got 4 of these to get ready, so I'm going to get 4 boilies out. All I'm doing is taking the very tip off of these. And likewise with the pop-ups. Now, using my baiting needle, and thread on the bottom bait first, and then follow that up with the trim down pop-up. And the idea is the 2 will sit together, sort of sandwiched together like this on the hair. I'll put a hair stop in there so you can see what I mean. There we are. I've got another couple of those to do. The third rod, for those that are interested, is going to be on one of my solid PVA bags, which I've got some pre-tied, ready to rock and roll. But that's about it for my snowman rigs, I think. What I'm going to do is also, ahead of time, is thread on one of these little mesh bags that you may have seen me create before onto the hook link itself in order to mask the hook point. I'll just do one here to show you, and then I'll turn the camera off and do the others. But I'm using my long gated baiting needle there. Pulls down quite easily, and then the hook point just buried in the little mesh bag there, so absolutely no tangles can happen, and the hook point is protected as it descends through the water and hopefully lands ready for the fish to take it. Last thing I need to do is get my anti-tangle sleeve back on this rig, so I'm using this needle here, this straight needle, just to gently tease that back onto the rig. It's a little bit difficult getting it over the knot sometimes, but if you just take your time, you can usually tease it over. That seems to have worked. There we go. So if I just push everything to one side for a minute and show you, there's the finished article ready to be cast. So with these all ready and prepared, that's just one of 4 that I'm going to have ready to go. So I've got 4 casts. As I said before, I don't think I'm gonna need 4 casts right off the bat. It's winter, the weather's terrible, but you know, just in case I mess up a cast or 2, I've got some backup plans ready in my bait box, or my bait bucket I should say. Right, let's hope that at least one of these things works and catches me a fish on the day. Well, my kit bag is always crammed full for an overnight session, and today is no exception really. But all I really want to get to right now is in here, underneath this towel, my big tackle box, because in there I've got some leads, and that's what I need to start working out where I'm going to be casting my baits to today. First rod going out is going to be the solid bag rod, and I'm thinking, don't know if this is the right thinking, just my thinking, but I'm going to fish this one closest to the island, just in case there's like any leaf litter or debris from those trees and bushes that have obviously shed their leaves for the winter. And my theory is that the solid bag will just sit on top of that stuff rather than being obstructed by it, I suppose. Little lead that I'm going to use here. I've just got an overhand loop tied in my main line because I'm using those Avid PVA bag stems, which I know I've mentioned before. All I've done is loop to loop that on there. I'm going to have a couple of casts and see if I can find a clearish area that I can cast that solid PVA bag to. Well, there certainly was a lot of leaf litter out by the corner of that island, oh sorry, that island over there, which is where I'm fishing to, but I've stepped back a little bit to try and find a clearer area, because I don't want that PVA bag just to be buried under a load of stuff and potentially never found. So I've stepped back away from the island a bit, still fishing in its general direction. I'm probably a couple of metres off of the corner of the island now with that rod. I've marked up the line, and I'll be popping a PVA bag on and wanging it out there pretty soon. I'm going to do something very similar with the other two rods now, just sort out where I'm going to be fishing. Again, I'm going to step away from the island a little bit further with these two, as they won't benefit from being contained in that solid bag in the way that that one going towards the island will. Try and find some clear spots, or clearish spots at least. It's never going to be very clear here because it is a very silty lake anyway, and there's a lot of trees around, as you can see, but if I can find clearish spots, that'll do for me, and then I'll hopefully have all rods fishing before we know it. I've already been here for over an hour, mind you, and I'm still nowhere near it, but hey, I've got 24 hours at my disposal. I'm gonna take my time. Well, that's my spots sorted for now anyway. I've got one just off the corner of the island here. I've got one stepped out probably a couple of metres, 6 feet or so, further towards the middle of the lake. And then I've got one almost straight out in front of me to the middle part of the lake. Quite nice clear spots with those second two rods. The one that's going to be on the solid PVA bag, not quite so clear, but hopefully I'll get away with it with the solid bag doing its work. For now, I'm going to get some bait ready so that I can start thinking about casting into the lake. Just move the camera angle down a bit here, show you what I'm doing. I've brought my one bait bucket today. In the top half is the little mesh bags and the PVA bags, which you would have seen me getting ready earlier. In the bottom half is this. It's a tub of mainly candy nut crush boilies with a few leftover krill ones in there as well. What I'm going to be doing is using my little collapsible bait bucket here, pouring some of them in, and pimping them up a bit with some of this stuff. It's some Manila cloudy liquid from krill. It always needs a really good shake because it kind of settles at the bottom, but I think it just adds a little bit of extra scent and flavour to those free offerings, ready for when hopefully Mr. Carp comes along. Gives them a nice glaze as well, and as the name suggests, gives off a little bit of a cloud in the water. Not that I think we really need it today, because the water is already pretty cloudy thanks to all of the rain that stirred it up, I think. But I'll leave those for a little while I get my actual rigs ready, and then when I cast, I'll be able to see where the lead lands, know where my bait is, and catapult out a few of these free offerings. Don't want to go mad, it is winter after all, but I want to get a little bit of feed into the area. First one's going to be this one. It's the solid PVA bag, which I've already made up at home. There's a little snowman bait inside here, a size 7 Fang X micro barbed hook from Nash, and you can see hopefully that this bag stem has a little loop in the end, which lends itself perfectly to being attached loop to my main line here. So I've tied a nice big loop in the main line, thread it through the loop in the PVA bag stem, loop it over, and there we have it, ready for the cast. I'm not going to worry about putting any free offerings out around this one, certainly not to start with, because it kind of comes with its own little parcel of free food, doesn't it? So I'm going to cast this one out first and then worry about the other two. Pretty happy with the way that one landed. Just about bang on where I wanted it, in fact. Let's get these other 2 rods sorted and then I can chill for a bit, get myself a cup of coffee. Alright, well rod number 2 is going to be on this. It's the spinner rig or Ronnie rig, which you may have seen me preparing or tying up on another video. That's going to be my middle of the 3 rods, rod number 2. You might have noticed on the video, on the video of me preparing for this session, some of these rigs have gone a little bit curly-whirly and probably needed steaming straight, but thankfully this isn't one of them. As you might be able to see on the bucket here, she's straight as an arrow, under no tension at all, so that one I don't need to worry about at all. I'm going to basically take the overhand loop which is tied in the end of this rig, pop it over this quick change swivel here, lock it in place, and then slide up my anti-tangle sleeve to make it all nice and neat. That's what I'm going to be casting out. I think what I'll do, I don't know if you should do this or not, I'm sure some of you will be able to tell me. I think what I'm going to do is hook on one of these little mesh bags just to help straighten everything out when it hits the clip on the cast, and to protect that hook point a little bit as well. On the way down, I think. Oh, got myself a little bit tangled up there. But yeah, something like that to cast out, I think I'm going to go with. So let's get this out there. I'm going to have my catapult, trusty catapult here, ready to rock and roll as soon as I possibly can after the cast, because then I can judge that I'm putting my free baits in roughly the right place relative to where the rig land is. So let's give it a cast. Okay, and rod number 3 is going to be this one. It's one of my trimmed down snowman rigs. Hopefully you can see there on my palm, and slid down the hook link. Masking the hook point is this little mesh bag of goodies. Again, some of these were a bit curly-whirly, but this one has actually ended up nice and straight with a little bit of coaxing from me, but actually I think that's going to sit just fine in the end, so I'm not going to bother steaming that one straight again. I don't think it really needs it. It's pretty straight as it is, which is great. So let's attach this one the same way that I did with the Ronnie rig, over the quick change swivel with the loop, pull it into place, slide back the anti-tangle sleeve, which is easier said than done when you've got slippery hands. That looks good. Okay. And then just before casting this one, just going to try and boost the hook bait a little bit with some of this glug. I can't dip the whole thing in, unfortunately, but what I can do is cram it down onto the bottle, upend it a couple of times, and then we've got a nice bit of glug all around that hook bait, as you can see there, ready for casting. So let's get this one out into the pontoon. That's 3 rods cast out and fishing. Absolutely brilliant. I'm buzzing now. I'm going to make myself, I think, a cup of coffee, relax for 5 minutes, and then think about getting camp sorted, because it's in a right old mess at the moment. That gas canister has had it. Luckily I brought a spare, so I'll be switching over to that in just a sec, but it was enough to make a brew, which is absolutely brilliant. 3 rods on the dance floor, feel like I'm really fishing now, and after such a long break away from a proper fishing session, it's brilliant to be out here. It just feels great, feel free, and just in nature, which is what I love. Beautiful day, although that said, the clouds are starting to build a little bit, so I better not hang about with this cup of coffee and start thinking about getting the bivvy up, tidying up my camp a little bit, because everything's all over the place at the moment, because I was excited and keen to get the rods out. At least I've done that. It's just after midday now, and I can say I'm properly fishing at last. You'll notice I've got the head cam on just in case it all kicks off and I actually get some action during the day, which I'm not actually expecting, to be honest. This lake has only ever really done fish for me right on dark or during the hours of darkness, so I'm not expecting one of those rods to go rattling off at any minute now. It would be brilliant if one did. I'm not expecting it, and if one does, I've got this and I can just turn it on and start filming and hopefully catch some of that action if it should happen. During the night, what I'm going to do is move from this mount, this head mount, to a chest mount, because of course on my head I'll be wearing my head torch, so I won't be able to fit both on there. That'd just be crazy. But yeah, plans in place to try and catch some action if any action comes my way. I'm not expecting miracles, it is the middle of January after all, but it would be brilliant to catch one. Well, it has to be said that that was a very long and messy process, but finally camp is all set up. I'm tidier, which is great. I like things to be tidy when I'm fishing. Just makes life so much easier when you need to reach something in the middle of the night, or if you get a take, if you're lucky enough to actually catch a fish, to get to the rods and do what's needed to be done. As expected, I haven't heard anything over the last nearly an hour that I've been faffing around. Nothing in terms of bleeps on the indicators or anything like that. And I also haven't seen or heard any fish crashing or jumping out. But we are in winter time, so I suppose they're not flinging themselves out of the water in the same way that they do in the spring and summertime. As I said before, it's just brilliant to be out here anyway. Great to be back in the bivvy after a bit of a hiatus. I'm looking forward to kicking back, relaxing, and just watching the lake and watching nature unfold in front of me. That for me is what it's all about. If I catch a fish, it's a heck of a bonus. Well guys, it's just gone 4 o'clock, and as you can tell by my changing clothing, the temperature is absolutely tanked. It is freezing. I've got as many layers on as I can. I've got my fluffy hat and everything. I've even got a pair of gloves in the bivvy there, which I'll be putting on in a minute. I might even get the hot water bottle on. It's freezing. Unfortunately, no action so far. I've just had a recast of all the rods, just because I wanted fresh baits out there for as it gets dark, and actually the light is already starting to be sapped out of the sky as we speak. So that'll be it now. I'm going to leave those. I'm quite happy with the way they landed. I'm going to leave those out there. Don't see any point in putting any more bait out because there haven't really been any signs of anything. I'm going to get in the bivvy, and I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll fire up the bivvy heater, which I haven't used for quite some time. It's the Nash bivvy heater, which uses little tea light candles. You would think that it wouldn't work at all, but it actually really does raise the temperature in there. So I'm going to get back in the bivvy, keep everything crossed for a bite, and hunker down for the evening. Get the lighter on it. There we go. So this would be nice for a little bit of ambient lighting, but I know what you're thinking. Naked flames and bivvies do not mix, and that's absolutely true. That's why it comes with this housing, and this is the bit that does all the work actually. This sort of like bell-shaped housing goes over the top, like so. And actually starts to warm up from the heat of the candles almost straight away. I've got a little carrying handle on top here because it does get very, very hot. And all I'm going to do is pop this in the bivvy near my bed chair, and it should raise the temperature in here just a little bit. And I have noticed that it does work, and it does feel a bit warmer after maybe an hour or so of being lit. So let's hope it provides me a little bit of comfort this evening. Hey guys, welcome to my kitchen, which is basically the floor of the bivvy, where I'm going to be cooking some bacon, in my Ridge Monkey toaster. Do you know what? I'm going to go mad. I'm going to go 4 rashers. It's no wonder I'm getting fatter. There we go. Oh, I smell of bacon. Lovely. So, that's cooking away. And while it does so, I'll get some other bits and pieces ready. I'm also going to cook some of these hash browns, and they're all going to go in a sandwich with some brown sauce. Magic. Oh yeah, that's the bacon part done at least. A little bit of oil in there for the hash browns. Oh, and there's the hash browns. Don't know quite how I'm going to fit all of this in one sandwich, but I'm going to have a blinking good go. Ooh. Oh, look at that. That'll keep me going. Brilliant. Yum. Really good. Very hot, but really good. Ten to 6. Still all quiet at the moment. All I can do now is hope. Well guys, it's now nearly 9 o'clock. I'm having my last cup of tea and I've literally just had a bleep, a single bleep on the left hand rod, which is the solid PVA bag rig. Didn't come to anything, but it certainly got me on the edge of my seat. I really hope one of those rods busts off. I'd love to land a fish. But that said, it has been brilliant being out here. I know that might sound weird to some people, but just sometimes just being out, being alone. I've had the whole lake to myself and just kind of been doing my own thing and taking my time, and it's been lovely. But the time has really flown by. For non-anglers, they never understand that. They must think this is the most boring thing in the world, just casting out a few rods and then sitting there and waiting. But honestly, time is flying by. Before I know it, it'll be morning and it'll be time for me to pack up and get going. I can only hope that between now and then, one of those alarms goes. Well, good morning everyone. Cold really is an understatement for how it got last night. You can see there's a hard frost on pretty much everything. The lake hasn't frozen, but I don't think it's probably far off it. My car is certainly all frozen up over there. So yeah, it got really cold. Now, you can probably tell I'm building up to the excuses because unfortunately nothing happened on the fish front. Hey, it's winter fishing, it happens, we all blank. In hindsight, would I do things differently? Yeah, I probably would actually. One or two of you guys have suggested that I shouldn't really bait up. Even that pouchful, or that 2 pouchfuls of oily that I put out on casting was probably unnecessary and maybe even hindered me rather than helped me. I didn't listen, probably should have listened, and I think I will next time. With that in mind, next time I think what I'm going to do is fish all 3 rods on solid bags, no freebies, just ping them out there and then just leave them and let them do their work and see if that does the magic. Of course, even then I could blank. It's winter fishing, you know, that's the way it goes. Nevertheless, am I glad I came out? Of course I am. It's been absolutely brilliant. I've loved the session, which I know sounds crazy even though I haven't caught anything, but I've really loved being out here. It's been great. It's given me a chance to play with my new GoPro camera too, which is something I wanted to do, which is great. If you're interested in that at all, then what I'll do is at the same time that I post this video, I'll also post a video of me unboxing my new GoPro camera so that you can see how excited I get about opening a box, if you're interested at all. Really sorry I haven't managed to show you a fish on this session. I'm gutted about that because I always like to be able to hold up a fish for the camera if I'm going to post a video. But during the winter months, I suppose I have to accept that's not always going to be the case. Well, during any months, that's not always going to be the case. You know, it's called fishing, not catching. Although I might need to change the name of my channel to Adam's Blanking rather than Adam's Fishing, because it feels like that. But hey, I'm not going to get down about it. It happens, we blank from time to time. Next time I post, I'll really try to get you a picture of a fish and holding one up and all of that kind of stuff, because that's what I really love. But you've got to be in it to win it, right? So I will keep trying. Wherever you're doing your fishing, and if you're fishing through the winter, I wish you all the very best of luck, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon.